My name is Dylan Harper. I've always been one of those guys who think they're smarter than they actually are. Ready for anything, confident with high-end gear, tackling long trails every weekend. But that one time, I pushed my luck way too far and decided to camp alone by the Blackwater River, a remote, barely explored area of Alabama where hardly anyone ventures, and the silence weighs heavy as lead. It was early spring, the trees bursting with bright green, the river flowing gently, shimmering like metal beneath the fading sun. I filmed everything for the Serpent Shadows channel, pitching the tent, making a fire, drone footage capturing the river slicing through the forest. It was perfect content, guaranteed to rack up views. Up to that point, everything was fine. But as evening approached, something weird crept up on me. The air felt off, not windy exactly, but like something was sliding beneath the surface of the river itself. If you've ever camped far from civilization, you know the sound of flowing water should be soothing. But that night, the Blackwater felt sluggish. The small ripples didn't match the current. Sometimes the waves even went against the flow. I laughed it off as paranoia, joking on camera. If this video suddenly cuts, it's because I've become a snake's dinner. Little did I know I shouldn't have joked about that. When darkness fell, I noticed no animals made any noise. That was strange, not even frogs or insects. It was an unnatural calm. I settled into the tent and tried to sleep, but the horror show quickly began. First came the sound of something heavy rising and sinking slowly at the river's edge, wet thuds echoing eerily outside. I pointed my flashlight toward the river, and the waves were behaving oddly, as if they were breaking and changing direction on their own. Seconds later, I swear I saw a black shape emerge in the moonlight, a floating log, perhaps, or maybe the massive head of a water python, one of those exotic ones that had escaped illegal breeders in the South for years. I zipped up the tent flap, took a deep breath, but fear had already moved in. The water noise intensified into a thick, slippery, dragging sound. The damp ground started vibrating, not from river turbulence, but as if something gigantic was circulating underneath the mud. Then came the moment that kicked off the worst night of my life. A huge shadow slid past the shoreline right in front of my tent. Water rose, splashing heavily, and I clearly heard deep, wet breathing mixed with the scraping sound of scales against river rocks. I tried convincing myself, must be a fish, maybe an otter. But instinct never lies. Suddenly, I heard a muffled whisper from somewhere between the water and the trees. Something deep inside me knew. Whatever was out there wasn't here just to scare me. The night felt endless. My heartbeat thumped louder than the river itself. I froze inside the tent, gripping my flashlight, expecting the worst. Outside, the water was making impossible sounds. The river, which should have flowed steadily, pulsed in strange little waves back and forth as though a massive form moved beneath the surface. I almost convinced myself it was my imagination, until a loud snap echoed next to the tent, and cold droplets splattered onto the nylon roof as if something heavy was rising from the mud. I trembled, whispering to myself, just a floating log, just a big fish. But then the smell hit me, rotten, pungent, so foul my eyes burned. Suddenly I heard the zipper vibrating, as if thick, wet fingers searched for the pull tab. A sound filled the night, a deep hiss mixed with a wet growl, like air forced through lungs full of water. Pure panic set in. The LED flashlight began to flicker just as another heavy thud shook the ground, rattling the tent. I felt something cold and slimy pressing against the fabric, wide, rounded, nothing like any log or animal I'd ever encountered. The Blackwater River seemed to breathe along with the monster. Water rose, receded, formed eddies, and I could hear it clearly, approaching with purpose. I stupidly thought of filming, but my hands shook so violently, I only managed to press rec and hold my breath. Two huge black spots appeared through a hole in the tent, eyes positioned in a way no common animal could manage, gleaming almost knowingly. Then came the voice. Not a roar or growl, but a drawn-out human-like whisper, like wind trapped in a pipe. The water brings you home. At that moment, terror paralyzed me completely. The ground grew wetter, tiny waves circling the tent stakes, as though something large and serpent-like marked its territory. For a second, I prayed for dawn, but deep down, I knew the water, and the creature wouldn't let me go easily. Night dragged deeper. Cold seemed to crawl up my legs, and the water's stench, sour, rotten, almost sweet, forced me to breathe through my mouth. Outside, the river, or something, moved again. Shallow waves creeping upstream, long silences broken by sharp cracks, like bones breaking beneath the mud. I tried convincing myself to flee to my car, but every muscle in my body screamed at me to remain still. The panic was physical as much as mental. Then, the tent's zipper rattled again, inching up slightly. I grabbed my knife and tugged the zipper closed, but the resistance was strong and warm on the other side. A black shadow pressed, testing limits. I shut my eyes tight, gripping the knife, ready for the worst. But then, suddenly, came a damp, muffled laugh from somewhere in the water, a sound completely alien to anything I'd heard before. Waves swelled around the tent. Something enormous circled the campsite. By the faint glow of the flashlight, I saw a slippery track in the dirt leading directly behind my tent and back into the river. In a panic, I grabbed my phone to call someone. No signal. The drone had vanished. Either I'd lost it or something had dragged it into the river. Then, as if the black water itself cried out, I heard a massive crash and a slimy noise. An immense creature shaped like a water serpent rose among the trees across the campsite. Its body as wide as a truck tire, its head black, scales glittering under the pale moonlight. It stared directly at me, cloudy eyes, fixed, unblinking. Time froze. My mind desperately searched for logical explanations. There were none. It wasn't just an animal. It was something ancient, monstrous, embodying every fear the water carried for centuries. My chest tightened. Tears welled up. The rotten smell intensified as the serpent slid back into the river, but the waters remained restless. I knew clearly it hadn't left. It was simply waiting for me to make the inevitable mistake. When the river finally quieted, exhaustion forced me to sleep. Even in dreams, I saw water swirling backward, eyes watching me from every whirlpool. When dawn finally approached, everything around seemed dead. Thick mist covered the riverbanks, dimming the sunrise. I emerged cautiously, knife and weak flashlight in hand. Every step sank into putrid mud, corrupted by something unseen. I looked at the river and froze. Its waters churned strangely, swirling back and forth unnaturally. The campfire remains were gone, covered by wide, slippery marks on the muddy shore, claw-like, or perhaps trails from something massive dragged across. Then came the same hoarse whisper from behind, now clearer, nearly at my neck. The water never returns those it claims, at least not whole. Pure dread surged, and in raw panic, I sprinted to the car, leaving equipment behind. In the rearview mirror, I swear I saw a dark silhouette swiftly crossing the river, a massive black head rising and disappearing into the fog. The black water swallowed prey and memories in every silent curve. In town, I tried telling a local cop what I'd seen, but he just smirked and said, "You aren't the first, better not come back. Some things around here you learn to leave alone." When reviewing the footage, everything was distorted. Static-filled audio, mostly dark frames, glimpses of two bright circular spots, eyes, and that low voice echoing faintly. The water brings you home. To this day, hearing running water alone at night makes my skin crawl. The Blackwater River still flows, silent and patient, awaiting new visitors. And I learned the hardest way. Some rivers don't just flow, they hunger. So if you camp near a river, don't ignore the feeling there's something beneath the surface. It might not always be the current. Sometimes it's that thing lurking, as ancient as the swamp itself,